Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas. This is how to make a survival horror game in Unity, and welcome to episode 10. So this time we're going to look at our jump scare, and firstly what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some enemies. I'm going to use one in specific, but there's plenty for you to choose from. We'll then move on to some animation with our door, and we'll set a sequence of events to trigger the jump scare. So if we go to the asset store, you can get to it by going to Window and Asset Store, or holding Control, pressing number 9. And I'm going to use this zombie right here. To get it, all I've done is type in zombie in the search, and it should be one of the very first ones to appear, whether you have free only ticked or not. It's quite a popular and common asset, and I feel it'll do absolutely perfect for this series. And you'll probably notice it being on the thumbnail of this series itself. You just simply click import or download, and it'll just bring it straight into your project. And I've already gone ahead and brought it in right here. So the idea of what we're going to do here is set up this scene so as we can literally have our zombie barge through this door when we have the gun picked up and when we're close enough. So to quickly get that into place, I'm going to get everything and move it so we have a stage for our zombie to appear on. And we actually have some walls for it to kind of make it look like it is a separate room. And I'm going to make it more of a corridor. So I'm going to bring it to about there. And same with this one here. And obviously, as I always say, you take as much time as you need to design all this, because it's, it's your game after all. It's not mine. I'm just showing you how it's done. Let's bring this a little bit closer. Bring it this way, touch more. That should do the trick. Let's make the door a little bit wider actually. So let's take the entire door and stretch it on the X to 7.5. Okay, so it's not perfect, but it will do the trick for now. So what we'll do is let's get our zombie behind the door ready. Go to our assets, zombie, model, and bring in this one here with Z at walk. Let's bring him in and let's turn him around, because obviously he needs to face this way. So let's rotate him 90 degrees. And he is fairly small, so we could do with increasing his size. Bring him into place. And let's increase to 1.5 by 1.5 by 1.5. Seems more accurate there. So you can see him, the orange outline, ready to barge through that door. So now let's set up this door to actually work for us, and we're going to do that in an animation and using a hinge, much like we did for that previous door down there. So I'm going to speed through this now, because hopefully you guys already know how to do it, and I will quickly explain a couple of things as we go along. So with this door, we have 3 separate objects. And this first one, labelled door, is actually the handle itself, which does technically need to be attached to this P-Cube 5, which is the main door itself. So drag and drop that onto there. Yes, we want to break the... yes, that's fine. So now let's add in a cube for the hinge. So game object, 3D object, and cube. Let's bring it into position about there. And let's shrink it down to the correct size. So 0.1 by 0.1. And then get it about there, and that looks about right there. Next thing we'll do is right click, rename door hinge with an E at the end, and drag and drop that onto door 1. And then finally P-Cube 5, which is the main part of the door, onto door hinge. And let's turn off the mesh renderer on that hinge. So now we can rotate, and we can see our zombie is ready to come at us through the door. So now let's set up a quick animation for the door. To our animations folder, and let's click on the animation, create, and we'll have this jump door anim, because this will be referred to as the jump scare door. So press the record and make sure we are at frame 0. And we're going to want to set this Y value to what it already is, because we want to set this first keyframe. So I'm going to set to -90. Hit enter to make sure we do set that keyframe. Next thing we want to do is we want to literally slam the door open. So we'll do that over the course of, let's say, 3/4 of a second, maybe. So because we're doing this on 60 frames a second, 3/4 would be the 45th frame. So by the 45th frame, hit enter, we want the door to have rotated to probably about there. So the door literally slams open. Hit enter, and let's stop that animation. Back to our project. And what we'll need to do is, as you've already noticed, it's not appeared on this door hinge because the animation will be on door 1. Animator, remove component, and then add component, and let's type in animation because we want that one, because we want to control when we play the animation. And all we need to do is change the size to 1. Untick play automatically because we don't want it to play automatically. And we need to add in the jump door anim into both animation and into element 0. And obviously we then need to set it as legacy. So make sure we clicked on the animation, click there, click debug, click legacy, back to normal, and wrap mode to once. So I'm going to quickly press play and just make sure this is as we would expect. We've still got hold of the gun there, haven't we? So let's go through here. And let's just make sure. Okay, so the door is ready and waiting for us. So now what we need to do is we need to set up a trigger to get this whole thing working. And this is where it gets fun. So the idea of what we'll do is have a trigger all the way across the floor here, which only activates once we've picked up the gun. So we'll obviously have to modify that pickup gun script. So game object, 3D object, cube. Let's bring it into position about there. And let's stretch it all the way across the scene, well, the area bit here. So that should do about there. Bring it up a touch. That looks just fine. And basically what's going to happen is we're going to activate this when we have this gun here. So right click, rename, and we'll call it Jump Trigger 001. So next thing, we go to pistol trigger right here, and we need to edit this script. So double click there, so we open this up in Visual Studio. Now you'll have noticed I have changed from MonoDevelop to Visual Studio in this series. Reason being is MonoDevelop will no longer be part of Unity as of 2018.1. So we're going to go with Visual Studio. Now the script is going to be the exact same, even if you are using an older version of Unity and still have MonoDevelop, it's fine. The script will be the exact same, so you don't need to worry about that at all. Now this pickup pistol, what we need to do is add in here public game object, and we'll just call it the jump trigger semicolon. And the idea of what we do here is as soon as we pick up that pistol, we can then set the trigger as active. The jump trigger dot set active true semicolon and save. And then we just need to add that extra variable right there. So jump trigger 001 added to there. So before we actually play test this, we will turn off up here in the inspector panel this big trigger here. So let's set up the sequence of events. So sequences, let's create and C# script, and let's call this let's call it BZ for reference because we're going A, B. So I want to do BZ because there's the second part. So as it kind of follows in order along the screen. So BZ jump trigger. And let's open that up in Visual Studio. Now, what we're going to do is this is all going to be done on trigger enter. So we don't need void update or start. We do need a couple of variables. Now, I want to actually play technically 2 sets of music in this. So we're going to see how this pans out. So I think what we might do actually is bring in that music and sound effects before we do anything, so we know we've got them ready to go. So if we go to our audio, let's create a new folder. Let's call this music. And in that folder, I'm going to bring in this Jumpscare tune, which you can get on the website for free. Head over there, downloads and assets, and the survival horror series. The other thing I'm going to bring in is this door bang, and I'm going to bring that into the effects folder. Probably guess what that is. It's going to be the noise that plays when the door slams open. So let's get to work on this. Let's add those two to our first person controller. So on there, on effects, let's duplicate creak sound. So hold control, press D. Right click and rename. We'll just call it bang sound. There we go. And let's drag and drop door bang onto there. Next thing we'll do, excuse me, is let's create a new folder. So right click and create empty, and let's have this as music. Hold control, press D, and drag that onto music again. So we've got that as a sub object, so it's a child object. And let's call this jump music, and let's drag and drop the jump scare music onto there and untick play on awake. Excuse me, problems with my throat today. So let's get going with this script. Public audio source door bang semicolon. Public audio source door jump music semicolon. And next thing we'll need to do is disable, or rather enable I should say, the zombie to appear. So we'll actually declare that as a separate object again, rather than have him active and play the animation. We'll just set him active and play the animation at the same time. Public game object the zombie with no space semicolon. And we can come back to a couple of other variables a bit later on. For now, let's just get this method written. Void on trigger enter. It doesn't need to be private. We don't need this in the parentheses, that's fine. So as soon as we enter this trigger, what we want to happen is disable the box collider so we don't keep re-triggering it. So get component, and in brackets, box collider, spiky brackets remember, open close bracket, dot enabled equals false. Next thing we want to do is reference the door itself. So let's set that as a variable. Public game object the door semicolon. So we'll do the door dot get component spiky brackets animation open close bracket dot play open brackets, and in quotes we need to put the name of that animation on the door, which is jump door anim. Door anim quote close bracket semicolon. Okay, so I've spelled component wrong there. There we go. So we've played that animation, so now let's make that banging sound. So public sorry, don't need to declare it. We've already declared it, haven't we? What am I doing? So door bang dot play open close bracket and semicolon. After that, what we need to do is set the zombie as active. The zombie dot set active true semicolon. And on that note, what we'll do is on the zombie itself, what I'll do is I will do this a little bit differently. I think I'm going to go to the model here, and you'll notice if we click the arrow we have all these bits and pieces, and we also have this little animation there. I'm going to hold control press D to duplicate that animation and drag it out of this particular FBX file. And we're going to use this separately. So realistically, we can probably drag and drop this walk animation onto the zombie, like so. And it should technically work. And I think what we'll do is we'll quickly try that out. So I'm going to bring the zombie closer to us, just so we can kind of see if it is going to work as intended. So let's quickly test this out. He should be playing his walk animation. He isn't. We can always solve that. Let's do this via animation instead. So let's remove the component and add the animation again. Probably best to rename the zombie as well. Rename zombie 001, and we want size of 1. We'll keep play automatically ticked. Drag and drop walk into both of those, and let's set that as legacy over here. And wrap mode loop is fine. Yep. So let's check once again. Hopefully the zombie is making that animation. And he is. So that's fine. We can drag him back to where he belongs now. Back through this way, behind the door. There we go. So he's ready. He's animated and ready to go. So we've activated him here. So the door slams open and basically we see the zombie straight away. So the next thing we want to do is we want to kind of pause for maybe half a second and then have the jump scare music play. And we're going to have to do that via an enumerator. So to do that, we'll do start co-routine. And in brackets, we're going to put play jump music. Open close bracket, semicolon, and that'll be the end of the void on trigger enter. Underneath, we're going to do enumerator and play jump music. Open close bracket, open curly bracket, and it's just a simple case of yield, return, new, wait for seconds. And in brackets, we'll wait for 0.4 seconds maybe. F because it's a float. Close bracket, semicolon. And then door jump music dot play. Open close bracket, semicolon, and save. So it's a small sequence of events, but it should get the job done. So now we need to drag that script from sequences onto our jump trigger, set those variables. So we need door bang, which is the bang sound, and jump music onto there, zombie onto there, and finally the door, which is door 1, onto there. And remember, we need to turn the zombie off in the inspector panel. Now, I'm going to leave this mesh on for now because we're going to see this working in action. So I'm going to press turn off that trigger. Now, let's test that this whole sequence works correctly. So I know we've got hold of the gun, but it's not a big deal. So you can see if we come through here, and yep, we see the weapon. If we go over here, it doesn't trigger, so the zombie isn't ready to come through. It's only when we've picked up our weapon that trigger will then appear. Oh, and it is absolutely my fault there. I should have ticked is trigger. So if we're going to test again, then I'm going to do this properly, and I'm going to turn off the M9. And let's do this properly. Yep, we get the idea. We need to get out of here. Let's go through. Yep, that's fine. And let's pick up the gun. And let's give this a go. Okay, so that was unexpected. So the music I've used there is just something that I have quickly thrown together. It took me about 30 seconds. It's just an example. If you want to use better music, and I recommend you do use better music, then there are tons of other places that you can get it from, just through a simple Google search. So you can see how that sequence of events works for a jump scare. And next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to get the zombies kind of come towards us as soon as we cross that trigger. And we're going to look at gun mechanics and probably killing the zombie as well. Because when we kill the zombie, we want that jump scare music to kind of end. So guys, until that next episode, thank you very much for watching.